Hi everyone. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I've been doing, other than just my matches. Um, I've really been looking into kind of switching some of these things up and trying out a different character moving forward as kind of a main character to play. Uh, Now, I know how everybody plays. I've played every deck. I've put in the time with every single one of them. So, but at this point, I'm basically looking to really get a character down. Um, there's a lot of appeal in a lot of these different characters, both on the regular base characters and the expansion characters. Um, but something that I've been interested in since the beginning, and things I've heard of that, well, not necessarily being good or anything else, and I'm not quite sure if I agree with, is Gwen. So, and also she's pretty different from playing Troc. Now, if you've been watching my stuff, I've been playing Troc as my main, and well, I think he's a great beginning character. And what I mean by beginning character is that he's a character that you can basically just throw out your face cards and stuff like that and be in pretty good shape, because when they hit, they're going to do damage, or in the case of the Q, it's pretty fast, and you're not going to make too many mistakes with Troc. But I also think it doesn't really lend to high level play. And the other thing is too is you can't really make a lot of decisions from it. So having said that, when you talk about a character like Gwen, it's kind of somewhat similar in the sense that you're not making a ton of decisions. At least that's the thought. And basically, you're just kind of playing what's in your hand and hoping that you kill your opponent before time runs out. And I'll get to what that means in a minute. But I'm not sure if I believe that yet. I'm not sure if I, kind of cater to that line of thought. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little series here. We're going to do kind of what I'm calling in the lab. Basically, it's like taking a fighting game character into the training room and seeing what you can do with it and kind of improving. So I'm going to go into the lab with Gwen and see if I can utilize her as a main for myself. So what I'd like to do today, before we actually get into actual play, which we'll probably do in the next video, is kind of go through the Gwen deck and get an idea of where she excels and where she's weak. So let's go ahead and start with right on our player card. So a couple first things you're going to notice is she's a 6 combo character. She's the only other character with 6 combos. Than Valerie. Valerie's the other character that can do 6 combos. The difference with Valerie is she can play all of her normals and they don't have to be in order, so it's much easier for her to use normals to fill up all those gaps. If we take a quick look, our throws are 3 points, so that's going to take up a bunch. We do have a linker, which is also a starter on the other side for 2. Our Q, we have 3 CP there, 2 CP there. Ace has 2 CP. The portal side obviously we can't combo into. So you're and it does run 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is only 5 combo points. So you're not going to run in like say 6 normals. You're not going to fill up with 6 normals to get like a bunch of aces. Can't do that. You could go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I don't know how practical that really is going to be, but we'll keep taking a look at it. But mostly you're going to fill up your combos with like things like maybe K to start because of its speed. You might occasionally do a Chain of Ice starter, maybe on slower characters like grapplers, based on its speed. Put in a throw and then maybe link 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 of Ice here for 1, and then go into Dash Gorger here, AA, to tack on. Your 6 CPs are going to be taken up probably by face cards mostly, and then kind of, or a throw, and then filling in as necessary. So that's kind of where we're going with the 6 combo points. 85 life, that seems pretty good for a rushdown character, except there's one big problem. Gwen is not really an 85 hit point character, and this is because of her Shadow Plague innate, which is during the draw phase you draw an extra card. Basically, you're drawing 2 cards at a turn. But the payment for that is you take 2 damage, and you can't stop it. You're going to draw 2 cards, and you're going to take 2 damage. So, this is one of the reasons why I think Gwen is stronger than what people give her credit for, is the extra draw. Now, the extra draw really is to kind of take up the fact that you're on a timer, and which means you're not going to be able to spend a lot of turns blocking. You just can't expect to block and move the game forward, which you have to do. You got to get your opponent dead before your innate basically kills you. Basically, it's like playing against ARG every single game you play. So you have to kind of get the damage and you got to kind of get the ball rolling and everything else. You can block, you just can't block that often, which means you're getting the extra draw to kind of counterbalance that. And really, the extra draw is being counterbalanced by the damage, because in card games, typically, extra card draw is going to lead into more deck velocity, more power, getting the cards you need, etc., etc., etc. So, this is where I think this extra card draw mechanic is not being taken. It's being taken a little bit too lately because of the cost of it. That isn't to say there isn't a big downside in the sense that, okay, yeah, she starts at 85 life, but she's going to probably play more like a Setsuki or a Manelker, where they start at 70 life, which is the lowest life total you can start at. And really, the one thing you have to note too is 15 life, so going from 85 to 70, is done in 8 turns. If you can't finish a game in 8 turns, you technically have the lowest life total in the game. So that's where I think some people think she is weak, because if she takes a couple hits, she's in trouble. So that's something we need to look at. So how do we deal with that? The first way that it's dealt with is with her time block, which is a special block called Gloria's Remedy. Whenever you block with it, you gain 6 life. If you block successfully. And instead of drawing a card from it or keeping the block, you just discard it. Basically, it just gives you 6 life. The loss of the card draw is not that big of a deal because you're really gaining 3 extra draws from it, because you're gaining 6 life. You're getting 3 extra turns of draws. So, and you're paying the extra draw 2 life a turn. So that's why I'm saying you're getting 3 draws, but basically getting this card on the table unused and gaining the 6 life. So that's one way to offset. The other is, of course, obviously a dodge game. Now, she doesn't really have a ton of really good dodge options. You can basically throw for a mix-up. You can do, let's see, there's Chains of Ice for 14. There's Ace for 16. There's Bar and Barrel for 12. And then, of course, the other thing is the Dreadnoughts Portal, the quote-unquote super throw for 22 damage. So that's actually going to be the most likely dodge that you're going to get. If your dodge is successful, you're probably going to go into AAA most of the time. If you have it, of course. So that's another way to kind of get by it. And the other is just straight up kill your opponent. So the way to do that is to maximize damage anytime you have the opportunity to do that. And that's putting out as much damage as your combos will allow and what your hand will allow. So you really have to be effective with maximizing your damage. So anyways, so that kind of goes through Shadow Plague. The other thing about that is to you need to rely on your deck a little bit more. Your deck is going to deliver you more often because of the fact you're going to fly through your deck so fast. you're hoping the game doesn't go long enough where you're drawing through your entire deck. In fact, I don't think it's even possible. You probably actually could if you never got hit, but if you never got hit, chances are you've won the game already. So it's probably not something that's never going to come up. Oh, the other thing is to mitigate the life losses that blue bursts are going to be a big deal for you, especially in a lot of matchups where you can really get hit hard. You know, your Setsukis and your Valerie, where they're going to put out a string where it's always pretty good to blue burst, but you know, that's going to be a way for us to avoid damage as well. So when you get jokers, really kind of hold on to them for blue, if blue burst is something that can be done. If it really can't be done, then maybe think about gold bursting, or you at least don't think there's going to be opportunities to blue burst. And I guess you can start thinking about gold bursting. But most of the time, you're going to hold on to those as combo escapes. So the other point about the innate that we need to look into is that the relentless strikes. Whenever an opponent normal blocks your non-ender attacks, non-ender attacks would be your normals, Barn Burrow, the jack, so the king, the jack, and that's it. So normals, king, and jack. You may discard a red and a black normal attack. If you do, the black one hits, you win combat, and combat ends. The opponent block is discarded, and they draw a card. Okay, so short version. So if you get your non-ender attack blocked, and if you play out a red and black normal, they basically have to discard their block. They'll still get the draw for it, but they will take damage for their black card. This means that black 6s and 5s are going to be very important to hold on to for relentless strikes opportunities. Again, this kind of counteracts a little bit with the fact that you need to kind of get out as much damage as you can when you do hit. But it's one of those things to think of, like say if you have a couple of 6s in your hand, which you will get doubles a lot because of how many cards you're getting per turn. But if you have 2 6s in hand, one black, one's red, use the red one first. Save the black cards for if you get an opportunity to hit with the relentless strikes. And also think of it, the fact that you've done kind of like chip damage. It's almost like you've done January levels of chip damage, which is important. It is damage that you need to think about, and damage that you need to kind of take advantage of when it comes up. This is also a good way to be able to get rid of blocks. If you're having trouble getting in because somebody's blocking a lot and you don't seem to have just don't have the throws in hand or what have you, this is one way to get rid of that block. So it's again a thing to think about. So, anyways, so we've gone through kind of her character card. So now let's just take a quick overview of Gwen's normals and throws, and etc. So her normal attack speed is 0.0. It is the fastest normal attack speed in the game. She will win hands down as far as normal attacks are concerned. So that's something to keep in mind. Throws. Her throw speed is 0.6. 0.6 speed is kind of your average speed. It's your average throw speed. So yeah, her throws aren't great in the sense of the speed, but you really need to have a throw game with Gwen. And the reason is in order for you to get your attacks through, you got to either get rid of their defensive options by throwing them away, or getting rid of them from relentless strikes. Or you have to at least make them know that yes, you're going to throw that throw button. So if you're going to hit that throw button, they got to think about your mix-ups between throws and attacks, and they're going to get it wrong at times. If you never throw throws, they can just sit and block all day, or they can dodge into whatever to do their damage, and then you're just never going to get through. So throws are important. What probably is not going to be important to you, with the exception of the 10 block that we talked about, is the blocks. You may have to use them occasionally for when you're knocked down and you need some block defense. But some defense against mix-up, but you also have a 0.0 reverse your own Q, so I guess we'll kind of skip to that to your Q card. Another 0.0 in the game. Manelker has that. Grave has that. I believe that's it for 0.0 Qs. Of course, Zane's super attack, maximum Aaron key is also 0.0. Cyclone Revolution, I believe, is also 0.0 for Geiger. But any case, and then this will do 10 damage if you also discard another card. Probably something you always want to do. Reason being is, again, you get extra cards per turn. You're most likely going to have the hand to be able to ditch a card for that to deal 10. Obviously, it's not as efficient as Graves' Q, but this is what we have. And then the last thing to talk about is her dodges. Dodges on 5, 6, 7, and 8. Kind of a mix of attacks and throws that they're listed on. Your 7th throw is kind of an important throw in most matchups because it is your fastest throw. So it's going to make it pretty difficult to use this dodge. Most of the time you're probably going to be using your 5 and 8, particularly your red 5, because you want to... your black 5 has a little bit more value since you can use it with Relentless Strikes. The 6 has more value just because it does more damage overall to use in combos. But if it's the only one you have, or you have a choice between a 6 or either of these two throws, probably use the 6 because your throws, again, are important, at least get it started. So probably early game, the 8's better. Later game, when you're going to start getting your combos in a little bit more often, the 6 is probably better to keep, and it's better to use your 8 dodge. The only thing about using dodge that I will mention is the fact that, again, you don't have a lot of dodge damage. The best you have is a 6 off a throw to get a cross-up opportunity, 12 off a Barn Burrow, although it works much better as a linker in combos or a starter because of its speed. You do have Chain of Ice for 14 in matches where you're not going to be able to use this as a starter. That's probably a possibility. And of course, you have Ace for 16 and Ace for 22. Again, not a ton of options off of dodge, so you're not really using dodge for damage. You're mostly using dodge to avoid the situation when you think you're not going to win an attack clash, where your attacks are going to be too slow. So that's it about dodges. Now let's go through the face cards, and it's probably easier just to look at them. So you see here, there's a ability. And Chillbane's actually works with the starter side of this. It says, whenever you hit with Chains of Ice, freeze the opponent, skip all decisions they would make for the rest of the turn. Next turn, their attacks and throws are 2 speeds slower. So there's 2 parts to this. The first is the freeze. If you do hit with Chains of Ice, which is the only way to hit with it, well, there's 2 ways, to hit with it. There's hitting off a dodge and hitting off just by playing it raw. If you do that, they're no longer to make any other kind of decisions. This includes, if you used it as a starter, their ability to play down a combo escape. So if you were to play this as a starter and hit with it, they cannot joker your combo. They have to take it to the face. They don't have any choice. So this is a good way to get in final bit of damage, and also it does start her highest combo, which is, I believe is Jack plus, King plus, and Ace plus for, let's see, 16, 28, 42 damage, and it's unjokerable. Again, a little bit difficult to pull off in certain situations because of the 3.6 speed, but not as difficult you think to pull off because you will have double aces. You only need 1 king and 2 pitch cards. The toughest part is getting the 2 jacks. but it does happen because you're not going to use jacks very often as a combat reveal. You'll probably use it in combos. The other way, when you play it off a dodge, the other thing you don't get to do with this when you freeze an opponent is they can't power up. Again, they're not allowed to make decisions until the next turn. So now when you dodge into it, they're still able to play a combo escape because when you've dodged, that's what they're playing the combo escape on the dodge. So they'll still be able to play face down day one. But you could stop a power up with it. I think in the case if you're using it after a dodge, you're really more interested in the second part of this. The second part of this, which is their attacks and throws are 2 speeds slower. That's pretty significant for you because you're already a very fast speed as far as your normal is concerned. However, one thing that we'll note that we'll get to a little bit in just a little bit is there's a little bit of a gap here with the speeds. There's 0.0, 1.2, so there's a big gap here between 0.0 and 1.2. There's a lot of things that do sub 1 speed or 1 speed that will beat your king or ace. And then you have another gap here between the 1.2 and the 2.0 speed. So there's some speed gaps here. So despite her very fast normal speed and a very decently speed K and Q, there's some speeds in which Gwen is vulnerable. This will kind of help with that, setting up your next turn. It also sets up a little bit of cross-up because you're more likely to play something like possibly like an attack because your attacks are going to probably beat their attacks across the board with the 2 speed slow. So now they're going to do something like block or dodge. Well, now you have the opportunity to throw. So you have a better attack throw mix-up. Anyways, that's about the J, at least the starter part. And then, of course, you have the linker. Linker, you're really only going to use in the case of you just need that extra combo point on damage, and you don't have a 6 available, but you only have a single jack. And that the starter side of this is not going to come in very often based on the matchup. You're probably never going to use it as a starter. The only way you may use it as a starter is if you don't have a 5 or 6 to play against Trock kings and Rook kings that will beat some of your normals. So that might be a possibility. There might be some others I'm not thinking of, but it's going to be very specific. So we talked about the Q already. Just real briefly again, it's your 0.0 reversal, and you will probably pitch to it most often to get the full 10 damage when it does hit. Bunboro, it's the same on both sides as your king, is a 1.2 speed linker. It's basically going to be used for 2 different things. It's going to be used for filler when you get in a throw or maybe some sort of normal combo or in the very powerful Chain of Ice starter combos. You're going to use it as filler to do 12 damage. Again, if you're throwing a king with the intention of using pretty much both pitches to get 12. It's not really worth it otherwise, even with the 1.2 speed. If you're really worried about getting beat speed-wise, you're either throwing out your Q or you're going to take a defensive option, like a dodge into a throw or just block, using your 10 block. But basically, it's going to deal your most damage in your combos. And then your ace here is, again, a 1.2 speed. And this is basically kind of on the same wavelength as your king. Although you are more apt to play this as a starter because it does at least 8 damage when you play it. So when you need kind of a faster option, this may beat a lot of options that the other player have, like a Geiger that you're not worrying about his aces. You're just worried about doing something against his time spirals, which have a speed of 2.4 at the slowest end. This might be an option for you if you don't have any faster than 2.4 speed options, which in this case you do because you do have a 2, but just as an example. But again, this will be used most of the time to kind of end your combos and end it for 16 damage when you have 2 aces. You do have the other side, the throw. usually you're only going to hit Dreadlands Portal off of a dodge, or you may be able to hit it on, say, the Zane matchup. Um, if he's in kind of a dodge throw, um, kind of in a dodge throw mix up, that the 4.6 throw will beat all of those options, and you'll be able to land 22 damage that way. You do have more powerful combos, so if you can land those, you probably do those instead. And the fact that it takes up 3 aces, you're actually you're getting less value than if you use them on the ace side. They're actually worth somewhere between 5 and 6 damage a piece, as opposed to when you play them on the ace attack side where they're worth 8 a piece. So the Dreadlands Portal is going to come in very situationally. It's mostly going to be used when you have to use a dodge to kind of maybe get the final 22 damage in, or just a situation arises where you're facing a lot of attack pressure that you can't deal with the cards you have in hand, but you do happen to have a dodge and triple ace. You know, it's very situational. So that's an overview of Gwen's deck. Again, just based on everything we've gone over very briefly, she's a rushdown character. She's going to look to try to get in as much damage as she can before she basically eats herself with her Shadow Plague. But she'll have very healthy hands because she does draw 2 every turn. You do have options to block if you need to, and sometimes maybe even early on in the game it might be worthwhile to do so, just to kind of build your hand. But for the most part, this is basically an attack throw mix-up character, and you're going to just try to do damage every turn. Every turn you have. So it's a very different character for me. It is, but it isn't. Troc is very known for pressing buttons to do damage, and occasionally blocking to get him attached and get giant growth on the board. She's a little bit different from that. She doesn't have grappler, she doesn't have grapple throws, but she does have a super throw for 4.6. But she doesn't have the life that Troc has. So she's definitely going to play a lot differently for me. And I think, given the fact that I think currently we don't have a ton of Gwen mains. We've seen some Gwen here and there in the Yomi League. I just kind of want to see a little bit more what this character can do, and also based on some of my love for other card games, being able to draw extra is always powerful in that. So I want to see if it actually does translate here or not. I also feel like there's a possibility I can overwhelm an opponent using this deck as well, especially not the top tier opponents, but kind of like the middle and new people. This deck can do pretty well against it, or at least I feel like I can do pretty well against it, people on it. So, so I guess next time we'll go into quick match and we'll just start playing. We'll probably we may also just do some quick matchup analysis, and we'll do that against some Yomi bots at some points here and there. That might come down a little bit later once I've had some time to really play against people in general with the deck. If it turns out to be a disaster, I guess we'll move on to a different character. But for right now, we're going to kind of take some time with Gwen. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of overlook of the character, overlook of the cards. And I'll see you next time. Hopefully we'll be in quick match, and hopefully we won't get beaten up too bad. So anyways, thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.